I wasn't supposed to be awake. But there I was, crouched behind the thick curtains of the living room, holding my breath as I listened to my parents argue. I don't care what he asked for, Bennett. My stepmother's voice rang out. Why take my own daughter? He didn't specify which of our daughters he wants. Give your second daughter, Maya. I froze. What? Are they talking about me? My hands gripped the edge of the curtain, half afraid the movement would give me away. She's weak. My father's voice was low. She won't last a day with Malek. But she's the second one. He didn't care which one. We just have to give him a daughter, and we're done. My stepmother insisted. Maya will do. I won't let you take my April to that monster. I felt the blood drain from my face. My mouth went dry. They were talking about me, and it didn't sound good at all. My hands started shaking. I pressed the curtain against my lips to keep my sobs from escaping. I didn't want them to hear me, to know I overheard their betrayal. You know what will happen if he finds out the kind of daughter we are giving, my father muttered. He hates weakness. Malek doesn't forgive mistakes. If we don't do this, he'll kill us all. He'll come for me, for you, for April. He'll tear this house down, and we'll all be dead before we get a chance to fight back. The words hit me like cold water to the face. Malek. The name echoed in my mind like a warning. I'd heard the whispers, the stories. Malek was a monster, a mafia lord, the kind who took what he wanted and killed anyone who stood in his way. And now they were selling me to him? I'm nothing to them, I thought. I'm weak. That's all they see me as. Just someone to get rid of. I bit my lip harder. I wasn't good at standing up for myself. I never had been. I was always the quiet one, the one who stayed out of the way. Even in my own home, I was invisible. My stepmother and father, they barely even noticed me. I existed to clean, to take care of things, but never to matter. All right, my father said finally. We'll do it. I think it's better that way. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run in there and tell them no, that I wouldn't let them sell me like this. But my feet were glued to the floor, my body shaking so badly I couldn't move. I turned and ran into my room, locking the door behind me. I crawled under my blanket, and there, I cried and cried and cried, because my life as it was just ended. The next morning, the door to my room slammed open and I jerked awake, eyes swollen red and a headache threatening to break my head into two. Maya, my father said, his voice flat, emotionless. Get up. We need to talk. I didn't move. Now, he snarled. I forced my legs to swing over the side of the bed, standing up too quickly, my head spinning. As soon as I walked out, I saw my stepmother. Pack your things, she said flatly. We leave in an hour. Pack my things? I repeated, my voice coming out like a whisper. Yes, Maya. Are you deaf now? You're going to your new home, she said with a smug smile, and I wanted to die. My new home. To Malek. I don't want to go, I whispered, my throat tight. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. We all have our parts to play in this, and yours is just to go. She snapped. I felt a wave of nausea roll through me. I didn't know how to fight this. I wasn't like April, strong, confident, able to stand up for herself. I was just me. And just like that, I was being shipped off to the most ruthless mafia lord in the country. The road blurred outside the window as we drove. The faster we drove, the more my thoughts seemed to spiral. What if he kills me? What did I ever do to deserve this? The car turned down a long, narrow road. The trees started to clear, and ahead of us was a large, imposing gate. Malek's mansion. I hadn't been here before, but I knew what it was. I could feel the weight of it. This was where my life changed. When the car stopped, I didn't move. My body was frozen, but my mind was racing, trying to find something, anything, that could stop this from happening. But there was nothing. I got out of the car, and Malek's men were waiting by the door. Big, broad-shouldered men in dark suits, their eyes cold as they watched me. I felt small, too small, under their gaze. My father pushed me toward them, muttered under his breath, and zoomed off. I was alone. You're Maya? One of them asked. His voice was thick, harsh. I nodded, unable to speak. Follow me. He turned and walked toward the mansion without another word. I didn't have a choice. I followed him, my heart pounding in my chest. The man led me down a long hall, and every step echoed. I felt like I was suffocating, like I was in a nightmare. We stopped in front of a set of double doors, and the man knocked twice. A deep voice answered from the other side. Come in. The door opened slowly, and I saw him. Malek. Goodness, he was everything they'd said he was. Tall, dark, and commanding, ruthless. I stood there for what felt like hours before he even acknowledged me. "What is your name?" he asked, voice smooth like silk but full of authority. My voice refused to work. He turned to me, dark eyes dangerous and the things of nightmares. "Do you not talk, girl?" He snapped, and I whimpered, taking a small step back in fear. "He's going to kill me. He's going to kill me. Maya, my name is Maya." I stuttered, tears rushing down my cheeks. "I'm definitely going to die." Silence. I felt his analyzing gaze on me like a weight pushing down on my chest. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, cold. "You're the one they sent?" He looked me over like I was trash, and I wish I could disappear. I shook my head. Pathetic," he muttered, taking slow steps toward me. "You don't even have the decency to speak when spoken to. What is this rubbish Bennett has brought to my door? Who are you to him?" I was shaking badly, my lips trembling. His hands held my chin, tilting my head to look into his dark eyes. "Speak, girl," he snarled. "He's my father," I cried, shaking badly. His eyes narrowed. "He's your father and he really brought you here? To me? Are you that worthless to him?" At that point, I saw red. I was worthless to my father, I knew that. But what gave him the right to say it to me like that? I thought angrily. The sleeping kitten that housed my anger stirred lazily. I glared at him. "Don't touch me." He laughed, low and mocking. "Don't touch you? Are you not just dumb but stupid too? Your father brought you here to keep his gluttonous neck on his head." He leaned closer, his breath brushing my ears. "You're mine now." "No," I screamed in my head. I opened my mouth to scream, but only cries left my mouth. He just stared at me with those expressionless eyes. "You're mine." He repeated in my ear, and I shook my head. "No." I shook my head. "Please, no, no." He froze. I cried over and over. "Please." His eyes darkened further, and when I thought he was going to do something crazy, he pushed me back, and I stumbled, barely managing to keep my balance. He raised his voice, dark eyes pinning me to the floor. "Take the thing away from me." Two large men appeared at my sides and grabbed me. I tried to pull away, to scream, but it was useless. "No food or water for her till I say so," Malek said, his voice soft but even more dangerous. I got dragged through the hall, past guards and rooms, until they finally threw me into a small dark room. I barely had the time to take in the surroundings before the door slammed shut behind me. I staggered back against the wall, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I tried to calm myself, but all to no avail. This was going to be my new reality. I wasn't sure how long I stayed in that dark room. It felt like months, but it was probably just days. Or hours. I wanted to die. I could still see the cruelty in his eyes. I was still lamenting when the door yanked open. Malek stepped inside, his figure towering over me. He looked down at me like I was a toy. Days had passed since he'd thrown me in that cold, dark cell, and this was my first time seeing him again. "What? Is he here to kill me now? Have you learned your lesson about defiance?" His voice was silk over steel. My legs trembled, but something inside me had changed during those endless hours alone. The darkness had given me time to think, to realize that no one would save me if I couldn't save myself. I had to learn to speak for myself. They'd either put me back here or kill me. And I was tired of living anyway. "I asked you a question." He grabbed my chin, forcing me to look at him. "Or do you need another lesson in obedience?" The old Maya would have crumbled, but the hunger, the isolation, they had awakened something in me. "I'm not." My voice came out as a whisper. I cleared my throat and tried again. "I'm not your property." His eyes narrowed dangerously. "You still don't get it," he laughed. "Everything in this house belongs to me." Then his lips crashed against mine. I gasped in shock. What shocked me most wasn't the kiss. It was how my traitorous body responded. Heat flooded through me, and I found myself leaning into him even as my mind screamed to run. When he finally released me, I was gasping, eyes wide with desire. "That's what weakness looks like," he sneered. "You can't even trust your own body to fight back." Tears burned in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "Not this time." "You're wrong," I whispered. He laughed coldly and turned away. "Get out of my sight!" He turned to the guard behind him. "Take her to her room and give her something to eat before she gives up on me." I shakily followed after the hefty-looking guard, my heart pounding. The kiss still burned on my lips, a reminder of my vulnerability. But something else burned too. determination. I wouldn't let him break me. As I rounded the corner toward my room, movement caught my eye. A maid was carefully pouring something from a small vial into a glass of wine on a silver tray. My steps faltered as I watched her hurry toward Malek's study. The academic in me, the one who'd spent countless hours studying chemistry before my life fell apart, recognized the slight discoloration in the wine. Poison. I froze, torn between self-preservation and... what? Duty? Conscience? The man had terrorized me, humiliated me. He deserved whatever was coming to him. But as I watched the maid disappear around the corner, I realized something. If I let this happen, if I stayed silent, I would be just like my father, someone who chose the easy path over the right one. The question was, did I have the courage to act on that knowledge? The new room wasn't much, but at least it had a bed. The guard, Marcus, I'd learned, stood at the door, reciting Malek's rules. Boss says you're not to leave this room without. The image of that poisoned wine flashed through my mind. What kind of person would I be if I let someone die? Even him. Move! I shoved past Marcus, surprising both of us with my strength. My bare feet slapped against the marble floors as I ran, his shouts echoing behind me. I burst into Malek's study just as he raised the glass to his lips. No, my hand connected with the glass, sending it flying. In my panic, I also struck his face. The sound of the slap seemed to echo through the suddenly silent room. Malek's head snapped to the side, and when he turned back, his eyes were black with rage. My heart stopped. What did you just do? His voice was death itself. Poison, I stammered, backing away. The wine. I saw a maid adding something. It changed color. I know what poison looks like. I studied chemistry, and that reaction... I was babbling, but I couldn't stop. He advanced on me, each step measured. If you're lying to me, little girl, death will be a mercy. I'm not. My voice rose, hysteria edging in. Test it. Look at the wine on the floor. It's not the right color. Malek snapped his fingers and guards flooded the room. Get every maid in this house. Now. Minutes later, a line of trembling maids stood before us. My own hands shook as I looked at each face. Hurry up, Malek growled. Something in me snapped. Oh, I'm so sorry, I spat, whirling to face him. Am I taking too long to save your life? Would you prefer I just point to someone randomly? The room went deadly quiet. I just sassed the most dangerous man in the country, but I was too far gone to care. She's not here, I said, turning back to the line. She was younger, with a scar. My eyes widened as a figure tried to slip through the door. That's her! Everything exploded into motion. Guards seized the fleeing maid, who started screaming. A small vial fell from her pocket, clattering across the floor. I sagged against the wall, exhausted. I'd just saved the life of the man who terrorized me. And I'd talked back to him. I was definitely going to die. Moments later, the maid's body crumpled to the floor after Malek forced the wine down her throat. I watched, horrified yet unable to look away. As everyone filed out, I tried to blend into the crowd, but his voice cut through the air. You, stay. I froze, then turned slowly. This was it. He'd kill me too for slapping him, for daring to speak back to him. But at least I wouldn't die the same scared girl who'd arrived here. You struck me, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. You were about to drink poison, I whispered back, surprising myself again with my boldness. Would you have preferred I wrote you a formal letter about it? His eyebrows shot up, and for a split second I caught something in his eyes. Amusement? And now you mock me. He stepped closer, but I held my ground. I saved your life, I said, lifting my chin. If you're going to kill me for that, then do it. But I won't apologize for stopping you from dying. He studied me for a long moment, then did something that shocked me. He sank into his chair, suddenly looking exhausted. The fearsome mask slipped just for a moment, and I saw something else. A man carrying the weight of his empire on his shoulders. Do you know, he said quietly, how many attempts there have been on my life this month alone? I hadn't expected that. No. 3. He laughed, but it was hollow. And the only person who actually tried to save me was the one I've treated like nothing. Maybe you should be nicer to people, I suggested, then clapped my hand over my mouth. Where was this sass coming from? To my absolute shock, he actually smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face. Maybe I should. He stood, walking to the window. You're different now. The darkness changed you. No, I said softly. The darkness just made me realize I was tired of being afraid. He turned back to me and something passed between us. Understanding, maybe. Or recognition. Go rest, he said finally. You'll dine with me tomorrow. It wasn't a request, but somehow it didn't feel like the same kind of command as before. As I left his study, my heart racing, I realized something had shifted between us. I wasn't just his prisoner anymore, and he wasn't just my captor. What that meant, though, I had no idea. The week after I saved Malek's life was like stepping into a different world. During dinner that first night, I'd gathered my courage and said, I think saving your life deserves a reward. His eyebrows had risen. Oh? Be nice to me, I demanded, then immediately blushed at my boldness. I'm tired of being treated like I'm nothing. I won't take it again. To my surprise, he'd agreed with that rare, genuine smile that transformed his whole face. The days that followed were different. He showed me his library, and we talked about books. He listened when I spoke about chemistry, seeming fascinated by my knowledge. Sometimes I caught him watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Last night had been magical. We were in the garden when I'd blurted out, that day in your study, it was my first kiss, the one you took. His face had darkened with regret. I'm sorry, Maya. Let me make it right. Then he'd cupped my face so gently, like I was something precious, and kissed me. It was nothing like that first brutal kiss. This one was soft, sweet, making my heart flutter and my knees weak. When he pulled away, his eyes were soft in a way I'd never seen before. I'd floated to bed, feeling like maybe, just maybe, this arranged marriage wouldn't be the nightmare I'd feared. But this morning, everything changed. I walked into the dining room, still smiling from last night's memory, and stopped dead. There was a woman at the table. Stunning, with long dark hair and perfect makeup. She looked up and smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Oh, you must be Maya, she said, her voice honey-sweet. I'm Izzy. Malek and I go way back. My stomach dropped. Izzy. Malek's ex. She turned to Malek, batting her eyelashes. Remember that summer in Paris, darling? The way we danced all night? Malek barely glanced at her, his eyes finding mine instead. Maya, sit. Your coffee's getting cold. I slid into my seat, watching as Izzy touched Malek's arm, laughing at something he hadn't even said. Every gesture screamed manufactured innocence, but I saw the calculation in her eyes, the way they narrowed slightly when Malek wasn't looking. Maya saved my life last week, Malek said suddenly, making Izzy's hand freeze on his arm. Did she? Izzy's smile tightened. How fortunate. I sipped my coffee, noting how Malek shifted away from her touch, how his eyes kept finding mine across the table. But something cold settled in my stomach. I might be naive about many things, but I recognized a threat when I saw one. And Izzy's perfectly manicured claws were definitely out. The question was I strong enough to face whatever she had planned? Looking at Malek, remembering the softness of his kiss last night, I realized something. Yes, I was. The old Maya might have crumbled before someone like Izzy, but I wasn't that girl anymore. I smiled sweetly at her over my coffee cup. Game on, or not, because just an hour later, pain hit me like a knife to the stomach. I doubled over, the half-eaten chocolate falling from my hand. Izzy's words from earlier echoed in my mind. I always get what I want, little girl. And I want Malek back. The world spun as I collapsed. Someone screamed. Maybe it was me. Then strong arms were lifting me, and Malek's panicked voice cut through the haze of pain. Maya, what happened? Someone get the doctor. The next hours were a blur of agony. Doctors pumping my stomach, Malek's hand gripping mine, his voice ordering me not to dare die. I fought through the darkness, clawing my way back to life. When I finally opened my eyes, Malek was there, dark circles under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept. It was Izzy, I whispered, my throat raw. The chocolates, she gave them to me. She told me she'd get rid of anyone who stood between you two. Sleth, I didn't understand what she meant. Now I do. His face hardened. Maya, don't. What? I struggled to sit up. Malek, I'm telling you the truth. Izzy would never do this. His voice was cold. She's been with me for years. She knows better. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So I poisoned myself? For fun? The doctor said it could have been food contamination. Stop it, I shouted, then winced at the pain. She told me herself she'd get rid of me. Why won't you believe me? Because you're jealous, he snapped. You're seeing threats where there aren't any. Izzy is... The woman who wants you back, I finished, tears burning my eyes. And you're too blind to see it. His jaw clenched. You don't understand our history. No, I whispered, the betrayal cutting deeper than any poison. I understand perfectly. You don't trust me. After everything, you still see me as nothing. I pushed myself out of the bed, my legs shaking. Maya, get back in bed. Don't. I jerked away from his reach. Don't pretend you care when you won't even listen to me. I ran from the room, tears streaming down my face. Behind me, I heard him call my name, but I didn't stop. I couldn't bear to look at him, to see the disbelief in his eyes. I'd fought so hard to live, only to realize the man I'd fallen for would never truly see me. I ran blindly through the streets, tears blurring my vision. I'm shocked he didn't even send his guards to chase me. Does he really want me gone? The screech of tires and blinding headlights made me freeze like a deer. Before I could move, strong arms yanked me back as a car whooshed past. Are you trying to get yourself killed? A concerned voice asked. I looked up into kind green eyes. The man who'd saved me was handsome in a gentle way, nothing like Malek's dangerous beauty. I'm sorry, I sobbed. I have nowhere to go. His face softened. I'm Zach. Let me help you. And he did. He took me to his penthouse, gave me a room, and asked no questions. Days passed, and I found myself wondering why my heart wouldn't cooperate. Zach was everything Malek wasn't. Gentle, open, trustworthy. He made me laugh, treated me like I mattered. So why did my thoughts keep drifting to dark eyes and unsmiling lips? The answer came crashing through the door, a week later. Malek burst into Zach's condo, his eyes widening in anger when he saw me on Zach's couch. Come here. Zach stepped between us. She's not going anywhere with you. Move, Malek growled. No. Zach stood his ground. I don't know who you are, but she was terrified when I found her. I won't let you. Malek's fist connected with Zach's jaw, sending him sprawling. But Zach got up, wiping blood from his lip. Stop! I screamed, but they weren't listening. The fight was intense. Zach was strong, but Malek was ruthless. Each punch made me flinch. Please, I whispered, then louder. Please! He saved my life. Malek's hand froze mid-strike. What? I almost got hit by a car. My voice shook. He pulled me back. He gave me a place to stay when I had nowhere else to go. Please don't hurt him. Malek looked at Zach's beaten face, then at my tears. You're crying for him? I'm crying because this isn't right, I said softly. The Malek I know might be ruthless, but he's not senseless. Zach did nothing wrong. He released Zach. Come home with me, Maya, he said. I'll come, I whispered. But we need to get him to a hospital first. Malek's jaw clenched, but he nodded. As his men carried Zach out, I wondered if I was making a terrible mistake. But the way Malek's hand trembled slightly when he took mine told me there was more to this story, and to him, than I knew. The ride back was silent until we reached his study. I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me. Don't. His voice cracked. Don't walk away again. Why not? I faced him, anger bubbling up. So you can dismiss me again? Scare the people who try to help me? I thought. He ran a hand through his hair. When I didn't find you for days, I thought you'd been taken. I thought my enemies when I realized you'd run to another man. I didn't run to him, I snapped. I ran from you. From your refusal to believe me, to see me as anything more than a possession. You're mine, he growled, but there was just desperation in his voice now. No. I lifted my chin. I'm my own person. And until you understand that, there can't be anything between us. He moved closer, his expression raw. I can't lose you, Maya. These days without you. He exhaled shakily. I've never felt fear like that. Then why won't you believe me about Izzy? Because he looked lost. Because accepting that means accepting I was blind for years, that I let someone that dangerous close to me. And it's easier to think I'm lying? Waft tears stung my eyes. I almost died, Malek. Something broke in his expression. He reached for me, and this time I let him pull me close. I'm sorry, he whispered against my hair, for everything. For how I treated you, for not believing you, for hurting that man. I'm not good at this, Maya, at feeling, at caring. Then learn, I said softly. Start by trusting me. He pulled back, cupping my face. Show me proof about Izzy. Real proof. And I swear I'll chase her out. And us, I asked. What are we? His thumbs brushed my cheeks. You've become everything to me. My weakness. My strength. But I'll prove it to you properly this time. I leaned into his touch, hope blooming in my chest. No more treating me like a possession? No, he promised. My equal, my partner, if you'll have me. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Now I just had to prove Izzy's true nature before she tried to strike again. Days later, my hands trembled as I sealed the envelope. Not from fear this time, but from anticipation. Inside was a carefully crafted letter that would set everything in motion. I'd spent weeks studying Izzy's patterns, learning her weaknesses, and now I knew exactly how to trap her. The letter contained details about a supposed secret meeting between Malek and his business rivals, information I knew Izzy wouldn't be able to resist. I had planted just enough truth to make it believable. The correct meeting location in Malek's private study, the exact time he usually took his evening drink, and mentions of the very business deals Izzy had been trying to sabotage. I had learned that she was just getting close to him as a spy from another Mafia gang, not because she actually liked Malek. Deliver this to Miss Isabella's apartment, I instructed one of the maids I'd come to trust. Make sure it looks like it was sent by mistake. That night, I prepared Malek's study meticulously. I placed his usual crystal decanter of whiskey on the desk, then pulled out a second, identical one from my hiding spot. This one contained the same poison Izzy had used on me months ago. I positioned both decanters carefully, one in its usual place, the other hidden behind a stack of books where Izzy would easily find it. My heart raced as I crouched in the hidden alcove behind Malek's bookshelf. Right on schedule, I heard the door open. Izzy's heels clicked against the hardwood floor, confident, unhurried. I held my breath, watching through the gap between the books. Izzy moved to the desk, her movements precise and practiced. She glanced at the decanter in its usual spot, then began searching the shelves. When she found the second decanter, a smug smile spread across her face. Looking for something? I stepped out from my hiding spot. Izzy spun around, clutching the decanter to her chest. For a split second, genuine fear flashed across her face before she composed herself. Maya, darling. I was just what? Planning to poison Malek again? I kept my voice steady, controlled. Like you tried to poison me? Izzy's mask slipped. You stupid girl. You should have left that night. It would have been easier for everyone. Easier for you, you mean? I took a step forward, my voice steady. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out? That I was too weak to see what you were doing? You are weak, she snarled, lunging at me and hurling the decanter toward me. I ducked, grateful for all those combat lessons Malek insisted on. The crystal shattered against the wall, sending poisoned whiskey splattering everywhere. Before she could reach the door, I tackled her, and we crashed to the floor in a tangled struggle. I grabbed her wrists, using my weight to pin her down. Get off me, you little... Her words cut off as my palm cracked across her face. That's for trying to hurt me, I hissed, and for trying to hurt Malek. The study door burst open, and I looked up to see Malek standing there, his expression thunderous as he took in the scene. Me straddling Izzy, the shattered decanter, the spilled whiskey staining the floor. Perfect timing, I said calmly, though my chest heaved from the struggle. Your ex was just about to poison your drink. Malek's men rushed in, grabbing Izzy and hauling her to her feet. She thrashed, her perfect composure finally crumbling. You can't prove anything. Actually, I said as I stood up, brushing off my clothes, I can. The security cameras caught everything. And the poison in that decanter? I smiled, feeling a cold satisfaction. It's the same unique compound that was used on me, the one only you had access to. Izzy went limp in the guard's hold, her face turning ashen. Malek, please. Take her away, Malek ordered, his voice like ice. When we were finally alone, Malek crossed the room to me, his fingers gently brushing the scratches on my cheek. You could have told me what you were planning. Would you have let me do it? His lips twitched. No, that's why I didn't tell you. I leaned into his touch. I needed to do this myself, to prove to everyone, including myself, that I'm not weak anymore. Maya, he said softly, his voice intense. You were never weak. You were always this strong. You just needed to believe it. He pulled me into his arms, holding me close. And now everyone else knows it too. I smiled against his chest, feeling truly safe for the first time. I had faced my demons and won. I had earned my place here, not just as Malek's wife, but as his equal. I love you, I whispered, the words no longer frightening to say. His arms tightened around me. And I love you, my brave, clever kitten, Outside, the sun was setting on the city we now ruled together. I had come so far from that terrified girl hiding behind curtains, listening to my parents sell me away. I had found my strength, my voice, and most surprisingly of all, my heart. And I would never be weak again. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you liked the story. See you next time.